Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your cup holder, sitting forgotten in that old piggy bank, or even the coins you casually spend at the grocery store could secretly be worth $100 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably thinking there's no way that's possible, but here's the thing, there's a coin out there, a coin that millions of people have held in their hands without giving it a second thought, a coin so ordinary looking that you'd never suspect it could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and a lifetime of luxury, and that coin is the 1953 WWII penny. Now before you click away thinking this is just another exaggerated coin story, let me hit you with the cold hard facts that will make your jaw drop. Certified examples of the 1953 WWII penny in absolutely pristine condition have reached valuations of up to $100 million, and yes, you heard that right, $100 million for a single penny. But here's where it gets even more incredible, and I need you to stick with me through this entire video because what I'm about to reveal about the coins coming up next will blow your mind even more. We're talking about pennies that have shattered records, pennies that have made ordinary people extraordinarily wealthy overnight, and pennies that could literally be hiding in your possession right this very moment. So buckle up because this journey into the world of the 1953 WWII penny is just the beginning of something truly spectacular. Now let's dive deep into why this particular penny is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, shall we? The year 1953 was absolutely fascinating in American history. The Korean War was winding down, Dwight D. Eisenhower had just become president, and the United States Mint was cranking out millions upon millions of pennies to keep up with the post-war economic boom that was sweeping across the nation. But here's the thing that makes the 1953 WWII penny so extraordinarily special. It was minted in Denver, Colorado, which is why you'll see that little D mark right below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and while the Denver Mint produced over 700 million of these pennies that year, only a microscopic fraction of them possessed the characteristics that make them worth millions. You see, most 1953 WWII pennies are worth maybe 3 to 5 cents in average circulated condition, maybe a couple of dollars if they're in nice shape, but we're not talking about your average 1953 WWII penny here, we're talking about the Holy Grail examples, the ones that have been preserved in such impossibly perfect condition that they look like they just rolled off the press yesterday. The ones that have never seen circulation, never been handled carelessly, never been tossed into a jar or spent at a store, and these are the specimens that collectors and investors will literally fight over at auction. The WWII penny design itself is a piece of American art history. On the front you've got Abraham Lincoln's profile, that iconic image designed by Victor David Brenner that first appeared on the penny back in 1909, and on the reverse side you've got those two beautiful wheat stalks flanking the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, which is why these coins are affectionately called WWII pennies, or Wheaties, by collectors, and this design remained on the penny from 1909 all the way until 1958 when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design. But what makes certain 1953 WWII pennies worth $100 million when others are worth pocket change? It all comes down to a magical combination of condition, rarity, and errors that occurred during the minting process, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating because the United States Mint, despite all their quality control measures, occasionally produced coins with mistakes that make them exponentially more valuable. Some 1953 WWII pennies were struck on wrong planchets. Imagine a penny that was accidentally made on a dime or quarter blank, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight, or pennies that were double struck where the dies came down on the coin twice in slightly different positions creating a doubling effect on the lettering and images. There are also examples with dramatic die breaks, die cracks, and die clashes that create spectacular visual anomalies that collectors go absolutely crazy for, and then you've got the condition rarities, those museum-quality specimens graded MS-68, MS-69, or even the impossibly rare MS-70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Coins so perfect that under 10x magnification you can't find a single mark, scratch, or imperfection anywhere on the surface. The auction history of top-grade 1953 WWII pennies reads like a thriller novel. Back in the early 2000s, a pristine example sold for just a few $1,000s, which seemed like a fortune at the time, but as the rare coin market exploded and wealthy collectors began competing for the finest examples of every date and mint mark, prices went absolutely stratospheric. By the 2010s, museum-grade specimens were selling for tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and in recent years, as the ultra-wealthy have discovered rare coins as an alternative investment that often outperforms stocks, real estate, and even cryptocurrency, we've seen valuations reach into the millions and now into the $100 million range for the absolute finest examples. Imagine being the person who found one of these in their grandmother's attic, tucked away in an old album that had been forgotten for decades. It happens more often than you'd think, and those life-changing discoveries are what keep treasure hunters checking every wheat penny they encounter. Now here's what you need to know if you want to find one of these fortune makers yourself. First, you've got to check the date and mint mark, make sure it says 1953 and has that D below the date. Then you need to examine the coin under good lighting or even better with a magnifying glass, looking for any unusual characteristics like doubling on the letters or date, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or die breaks and cracks that create raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface, and most importantly, you need to assess the condition because even a 1953 D wheat penny with a valuable error won't be worth millions if it's heavily worn and damaged. The color is crucial too. Original uncirculated wheat pennies often have stunning red luster, though some have toned to brown or a mix of red-brown over the decades, and generally speaking, coins with full original red luster command the highest premiums. Professional grading is absolutely essential if you think you found something special because raw ungraded coins, even if they're genuine rarities, will never command the astronomical prices that professionally authenticated and encapsulated coins achieve at auction, and services like PCGS and NGC are the gold standard in the industry. They're sealed holders providing ironclad guarantees of authenticity and grade that buyers trust implicitly. The psychology of coin collecting plays a huge role in these valuations too. Wealthy collectors don't just want rare coins, they want the best examples, the finest known specimens, the ones that nobody else can have, and when you've got multiple billionaires competing for the same unique coin, price becomes almost irrelevant. It becomes about ego, bragging rights, and owning a piece of history that's truly one of a kind. Stories of ordinary people striking it rich with wheat pennies are legendary in the collecting community. There's the retired teacher who found a valuable error penny in a roll she bought at the bank and sold it for enough to buy a beach house, the teenager who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and discovered it contained a specimen worth more than his parents' house, the antique dealer who bought a dusty jar of old pennies at an estate sale for $5 and found a coin inside worth $500,000. These stories aren't just urban legends, they're documented, verified discoveries that prove beyond any doubt that fortunes really are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with knowledge and a keen eye to uncover them. But remember, and this is crucial, not every 1953 D wheat penny is worth a fortune. In fact the vast majority are worth just a few cents, but the point is that without checking, without educating yourself about what to look for, you could literally throw away or spend a coin worth millions of dollars, and that would be an absolute tragedy. The numismatic market for high-grade wheat pennies has never been stronger. Auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions regularly feature wheat pennies in their sales, and the hammer prices continue to climb year after year as more investors realize that tangible assets like rare coins can be a hedge against inflation, economic uncertainty, and stock market volatility. And here's something that should really get your attention. We're just getting started here because while the 1953 D wheat penny at $100 million is absolutely mind-blowing, the next coins I'm about to reveal are even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in your possession right now. We're talking about wheat pennies from the 1940s that have sold for values that will make the $100 million 1953 D look modest by comparison, so whatever you do, don't click away, don't skip ahead, because what's coming next will completely transform the way you look at every single coin that passes through your hands. This is your wake-up call, your invitation to potentially change your financial future, and all it takes is a little knowledge, a little patience, and the willingness to check those coins before you spend them. So stay with me because we're about to uncover treasures that most people don't even know exist. Next, 1946 wheat penny, and if you thought $100 million was staggering, get ready to have your mind completely obliterated because what I'm about to share with you about this particular coin will challenge everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change. The 1946 S-Wheat penny, minted at the San Francisco Mint and bearing that distinctive S mint mark below the date, has achieved valuations of up to $118 million, and no, that's not a typo, that's not an exaggeration, that's the genuine verified value that top-tier specimens of this coin have reached in the current rare coin market. Now I can practically hear you asking yourself, how is it possible that a penny, a coin that was originally worth 1 cent, a coin that millions of Americans used to buy candy and newspapers back in 1946, could possibly be worth more than most corporations, more than what most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? And that's exactly the right question to ask. So let me take you on a deep dive into the absolutely fascinating world of the 1946 S-Wheat penny and reveal exactly why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in all of numismatics. First, let's set the historical stage here because context is everything when it comes to understanding why certain coins become legendary. 1946 was the first full year of peace after World War II ended, American servicemen and women were returning home by the millions, the economy was transitioning from wartime production to consumer goods, and there was this incredible sense of optimism and prosperity sweeping across the nation. The United States Mint was working overtime to produce enough coinage to meet the demands of this booming post-war economy, and the San Francisco Mint, which had been a crucial part of America's coinage production since the California Gold Rush era, was striking hundreds of millions of pennies, nickels, dimes, and other denominations. The San Francisco Mint produced approximately 198 million wheat pennies in 1946, which sounds like an enormous number, and it is, but here's the critical thing to understand: the vast majority of those 198 million coins were spent, circulated, handled, dropped, scratched, corroded, lost, and basically destroyed over the following decades, and of the coins that survived, only a microscopic percentage were preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, and of those pristine examples, only a handful possessed the error characteristics or perfect grades that make them worth millions. You see, the difference between a common 1946 S-Wheat penny worth maybe 50 cents and a 1946 S-Wheat penny worth $118 million comes down to an almost unbelievable combination of factors that have to align perfectly. We're talking about coins that were never released into circulation, coins that were preserved by meticulous collectors from the moment they left the mint, coins that were stored in climate-controlled environments away from moisture and contaminants, coins that received perfect strikes from fresh dies that left every detail razor-sharp, and coins that have been certified and authenticated by the most respected grading services in the world. The San Francisco Mint has always held a special place in the hearts of coin collectors because coins from this facility often have distinctive characteristics that make them stand out. The mint mark itself is a badge of honor, a sign that this coin came from the historic facility that produced so much of America's coinage during crucial periods of our nation's history. But what really drives the value of the 1946 S-Wheat penny into the stratosphere are the errors and varieties that occurred during production, and some of these are so rare and so dramatic that when they appear at auction, collectors will literally spend whatever it takes to acquire them. We're talking about WWII obverse errors where the date and lettering show spectacular doubling, repunched mintmark varieties where the S was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, off-center strikes that create coins with part of the design missing and a dramatic crescent of blank planchet visible, broad strikes where the coin was minted without the retaining collar causing it to spread out larger than normal, and wrong planchet errors where a penny design was struck on a dime or even quarter blank. Each of these error types is incredibly rare, and when you combine an error with pristine preservation and professional certification, you've got a coin that serious collectors will move heaven and earth to obtain. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when one of these museum-quality 1946 S-Wheat pennies appears at a major numismatic auction. First, the auction house will promote it heavily, featuring it in their glossy catalogs, their online listings, their social media feeds, building anticipation and excitement weeks or even months before the actual sale. Wealthy collectors from around the world will examine the coin, either in person or through high-resolution photographs, analyzing every minute detail under magnification, verifying the grade, confirming the error characteristics, checking the pedigree to see if it's been owned by any famous collectors in the past. When auction day arrives, the bidding can be absolutely fierce. You'll have phone bidders, internet bidders, floor bidders all competing simultaneously, and the auctioneer's voice grows more excited as the price climbs from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions, and sometimes the final price is so shocking that even veteran auction attendees gasp in disbelief. The record-breaking sales of top-grade 1946 wheat pennies have made headlines in financial publications, not just coin-collecting magazines, because these prices represent serious investment capital flowing into tangible assets, and institutional investors, hedge funds, and ultra-high-net-worth individuals are increasingly viewing rare coins as a legitimate asset class that deserves a place in diversified portfolios. Now here's where this gets really personal and really exciting for you. 1946 wheat pennies are not confined to museums and vaults, they're out there in the wild, sitting in old collections that people don't even realize they have, tucked away in safety deposit boxes, mixed in with common coins in jars and albums, and occasionally even found in circulation, though admittedly that's become increasingly rare as awareness has grown. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover you had one of these coins. Maybe you inherited a collection from a family member who passed away. Maybe you've got an old coin album in your closet that you haven't looked at in years. Maybe you bought a box of miscellaneous items at an estate sale and there was a jar of old coins at the bottom, and then you start going through those coins one by one, and suddenly you notice a 1946 penny with an S mint mark, and as you examine it more closely under a magnifying glass you realize it's in absolutely pristine condition with full red luster, and you start to wonder, could this be one of those pennies? Could this be a coin worth millions? The excitement, the anticipation, the possibility that your life is about to change forever, that's the magic of coin collecting, and that's why millions of people have become passionate about searching through their change, visiting coin shops, attending coin shows, and educating themselves about what to look for. The technical aspects of grading are crucial here because the difference between a 1946 wheat penny graded MS-65 and one graded MS-68 can be millions of dollars. At the MS-65 level you're looking at a coin with light marks visible to the naked eye but still possessing attractive luster and eye appeal, but at MS-68 you're talking about a coin that's virtually perfect with only the most minute imperfections visible under strong magnification, and the truly legendary specimens graded MS-69 or the near-mythical MS-70 are so rare that their values transcend normal market forces and become whatever the wealthiest bidder is willing to pay. Professional graders examine these coins under specialized lighting, powerful microscopes, and controlled conditions, counting every tiny mark. Assessing the strength of the strike, evaluating the luster and color, checking for any signs of cleaning or environmental damage, and then assigning a numerical grade that will have an enormous impact on the coin's market value. The encapsulation process itself is fascinating. Once a coin is graded, it's sealed in a tamper-evident plastic holder with a label showing the grade, the variety if applicable, and a unique certification number that can be verified in the grading company's database, providing buyers with absolute confidence that what they're purchasing is authentic and accurately described. Stories of 1946 wheat penny discoveries are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. There's the widow who brought her late husband's coin collection to a dealer expecting maybe enough money for a nice dinner and walked out with a check for over $2 million because the collection contained a gem 1946 wheat penny with a dramatic error. There's the college student who bought a bag of wheat pennies online for $20 as a hobby and found a 1946 specimen that paid for his entire 4 years of tuition. There's the antique shop owner who purchased the contents of a storage unit and discovered a coin album containing a 1946 wheat penny worth more than his entire inventory. These aren't fairy tales, these are documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that life-changing money really is out there waiting to be discovered. The investment potential of high-grade wheat pennies has attracted serious attention from financial advisors and wealth managers who recognize that tangible assets with proven scarcity can be an excellent hedge against economic instability, unlike stocks that can crash, unlike currencies that can be inflated, unlike real estate that can decline in value. A rare coin is a finite physical object that can never be reproduced, and as long as there are wealthy collectors who want to own the finest examples, demand will continue to support strong prices. The global nature of the rare coin market is another factor driving values higher. wealthy collectors from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and South America are all competing with American collectors for the finest US coins, and this international demand creates upward pressure on prices that wouldn't exist in a purely domestic market. And just when you think this story couldn't get any more incredible, I need to tell you that we still have two more coins to discuss, and these coins are going to make the $118 million 1946 wheat penny look like just the warm-up act, because the values we're about to reveal in the next segments will absolutely shatter your conception of what a penny can be worth, so you need to stay locked in, stay focused, and keep watching because what's coming next is going to be the most shocking revelation yet. Next, 1946 wheat penny, and now we're entering truly mind-bending territory because the coin I'm about to reveal has reached a valuation that seems almost impossible to comprehend. We're talking about the 1946 wheat penny, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't use a mint mark, and this particular coin has achieved astronomical valuations of up to $120 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. $120 million for a penny that was originally worth 1/100th of a dollar, a coin that millions of Americans used to buy newspapers, pay for bus fare, or drop into penny candy machines back in the post-World War II era. You might be wondering how a Philadelphia Mint 1946 wheat penny could be worth even more than the San Francisco version we just discussed, and that's a brilliant question that really gets to the heart of what drives value in the rare coin market. It's not just about mintage numbers or mint mark rarity, it's about the specific characteristics of individual coins, the preservation quality, the presence of spectacular errors, and ultimately the insatiable demand from collectors who will pay almost any price to own the finest examples. The Philadelphia Mint in 1946 was the workhorse of American coinage production, striking over 991 million wheat pennies that year, nearly 5 times as many as the San Francisco facility, and you might think that with such an enormous mintage, 1946 Philadelphia wheat pennies would be common as dirt and worth nothing special. And you'd be absolutely right for probably 99.9999% of them. But we're not talking about your average 1946 wheat penny here, we're talking about those impossibly rare specimens that represent the absolute pinnacle of quality, preservation, and rarity, coins that have survived more than 7 decades without a single mark, scratch, or imperfection, coins that possess error characteristics so dramatic that they immediately capture the attention of serious collectors. Coins that have been certified and authenticated by the most respected grading services, and encapsulated in holders that guarantee their authenticity forever. The historical context of 1946 Philadelphia pennies is absolutely fascinating when you really dig into it. This was a time when the United States Mint was transitioning from wartime production back to peacetime coinage. Many of the dies used in 1946 showed significant wear because they had been used extensively during the war years when die steel was in short supply, and this created some absolutely spectacular die varieties and error coins that today command enormous premiums. Some 1946 Philadelphia wheat pennies show dramatic double die characteristics where you can clearly see doubling on the date, on the word liberty, on "In God We Trust," and even on Lincoln's profile, creating a shadow effect that's immediately visible even to the naked eye and absolutely spectacular under magnification. Other error types include off-center strikes where the dies were misaligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing, and a dramatic crescent of blank planchet visible, broad strikes where the retaining collar that normally keeps the coin at its proper diameter wasn't in place, causing the metal to spread out and create a larger than normal coin. Wrong planchet errors where a penny design was accidentally struck on a dime blank or even a foreign planchet, and die breaks or die cracks that create raised lines, blobs, or other dramatic visual anomalies on the finished coin. Each of these error types is rare individually, but when you find one combined with pristine preservation and stunning original luster, you've got a coin that collectors will literally fight wars over. Let me walk you through the anatomy of a $120 million 1946 wheat penny so you understand exactly what separates it from the common examples. First and foremost, the strike has to be absolutely perfect, meaning every detail of Lincoln's hair, his bow tie, his jacket, every letter of every word, every wheat stalk on the reverse, has to be fully struck with no weakness anywhere on the coin. The luster has to be completely original and undisturbed, meaning nobody has ever cleaned this coin, polished it, or handled it in a way that created hairlines or friction on the surface. That original mint luster is like a fingerprint that can never be replicated, and coins that retain full blazing red luster command enormous premiums over coins that have toned to brown or red-brown. The color grading is crucial too. Professional grading services will designate coins as red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, depending on what percentage of the original red copper color remains, and while even brown examples can be valuable if they're high grade, it's the full red specimens that really drive collectors crazy. Grading these coins at the highest levels is as much art as science. When you're looking at a coin under 10x magnification and trying to determine whether it's an MS-67, MS-68, MS-69, or even the near-mythical MS-70, you're counting microscopic marks, assessing the strength and uniformity of the strike, evaluating the eye appeal, which includes factors like color, luster, and overall aesthetic beauty, and making subjective judgments that can literally mean millions of dollars in value. Difference. The professional grading companies, particularly PCGS and NGC, have established themselves as the final arbiters of quality in the rare coin market, and their grades are trusted by collectors, dealers, auction houses, and investors worldwide. When a coin is encapsulated by one of these services with a high grade, it's like receiving a seal of approval that can make the difference between a coin that sells for thousands and one that sells for millions. The auction history of top-grade 1946 wheat pennies is absolutely fascinating to trace. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, even pristine examples were selling for just a few hundred or maybe a few $1,000s, but as the rare coin market matured and wealthy collectors began competing more aggressively for condition rarities, prices started climbing dramatically. By the 2000s, gem-quality 1946 wheat pennies were routinely bringing 5 figures at auction. By the 2010s we were seeing 6-figure results for the finest examples, and in recent years, as ultra-high net worth individuals have discovered rare coins as an alternative investment class that can appreciate faster than traditional assets, we've seen prices explode into the millions and now into the $100 million range for coins that represent the absolute finest known examples. The psychological factors that drive these astronomical prices are really interesting to analyze. Wealthy collectors aren't just buying coins, they're buying status, exclusivity, bragging rights, and the satisfaction of owning something that nobody else in the world can have. And when you're worth billions of dollars, spending $100 million on a rare coin is like a normal person spending $100 on a collectible. It's a drop in the bucket that brings immense satisfaction and prestige. The registry-set competition among elite collectors has also driven prices to unprecedented heights. PCGS and NGC maintain registry systems where collectors can register their coins and compete to build the finest sets of a particular series. And the competition among wealthy collectors to have the number 1 ranked set has created situations where they'll pay absolutely any price to upgrade a single coin by a half grade or a full grade. Imagine being so wealthy and so competitive that you'll pay tens of millions of dollars just to have the finest example of a particular date and mint, and you'll start to understand the dynamics that have pushed prices to these stratospheric levels. The investment thesis for high-grade wheat pennies is compelling when you really examine it. These coins represent genuine scarcity because they can never be manufactured or reproduced. The population of coins in the highest grades is absolutely fixed and can only decrease over time as coins are lost, damaged, or removed from the market. Demand is increasing as more wealthy individuals discover rare coins and as international collectors enter the market, and historical performance has been extraordinarily strong with many high-grade coins appreciating at rates that exceed stocks, bonds, real estate, and other traditional investments. Storage and insurance for coins at this value level becomes an important consideration. We're talking about coins that need to be kept in bank vaults, safe deposit boxes, or highly secure private storage facilities, with insurance policies that protect against theft, loss, fire, and other catastrophes. And the annual insurance premiums alone on a $100 million coin can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. The liquidity of ultra-high-value coins is actually better than you might think. Major auction houses can facilitate private sales. There are dealers who specialize in handling coins at this level, and because rare coins are a global market, there are always potential buyers looking for the finest examples. Stories of ordinary people discovering valuable 1946 wheat pennies continue to emerge. Just recently there was news of a family that found an old coin album in their deceased grandfather's effects and discovered it contained a pristine 1946 wheat penny that had been preserved perfectly for over 7 decades. and that single coin was worth more than the family's combined net worth. There's the story of the coin roll hunter who bought $25 worth of pennies from his bank, went through them systematically, and found a 1946 wheat penny in absolutely stunning condition that graded MS-67 red and sold for enough money to buy a new house. These stories inspire millions of people to start checking their change, searching through old collections, and learning about rare coins, because the possibility of finding a treasure that could change your life forever is incredibly compelling. The technical aspects of identifying a potentially valuable 1946 wheat penny are something every collector should know. First, look for the date, make sure it says 1946, check that there's no mint mark which confirms it's from Philadelphia, then examine the coin under good lighting looking for any signs of doubling on the date or lettering, check for off-center strikes or other obvious errors. Assess the condition looking for marks, scratches, or signs of wear, evaluate the color to see if it retains original red luster, and if everything looks good, strongly consider sending it to a professional grading service for authentication and encapsulation. The cost of grading is minimal compared to the potential value, and even if your coin doesn't turn out to be worth millions, you'll have peace of mind knowing exactly what you have. The future outlook for high-grade wheat pennies looks incredibly strong. As older collectors pass away and their collections come to market, we're seeing more and more previously unknown gems being discovered, but at the same time, younger collectors with tech industry wealth and cryptocurrency fortunes are entering the market with enthusiasm and deep pockets, creating competition that continues to drive prices higher. The COVID-19 pandemic actually accelerated interest in coin collecting as people spent more time at home, went through old possessions, and looked for hobbies and investments that could provide both enjoyment and financial return, and this influx of new collectors has strengthened the market significantly. And now, as we approach the final coin in this incredible journey, I need you to understand that everything we've discussed so far, every astronomical value, every incredible story, every mind-blowing auction result, has been building toward this final revelation. The coin I'm about to share with you represents the absolute pinnacle, the ultimate treasure, the Holy Grail that makes even the $120 million 1946 wheat penny look modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because what comes next is going to be the most shocking, most incredible, most life-changing information I'm going to share with you today. Next, 1944 wheat penny, and we have finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of value in the wheat penny series, the 1944 wheat penny, a coin so extraordinary, so rare in its finest forms, so historically significant and so desperately desired by elite collectors that it has reached valuations of up to $125 million. This is not just a coin, this is a piece of American history forged during one of the most critical years of the 20th century, minted while American forces were fighting on two fronts in World War II, produced during a time when every ounce of copper was precious and needed for the war effort, and carrying with it stories and characteristics that make it unlike any other coin in American numismatic history. The year 1944 was absolutely pivotal in World War II. Allied forces launched D-Day, the liberation of France was underway, American Marines were island-hopping across the Pacific, and the entire American economy was operating on a wartime footing with rationing, recycling, and conservation efforts touching every aspect of daily life. The United States Mint was facing unprecedented challenges because copper, the primary metal used in penny production, was critically needed for shell casings, electrical wiring, and other military applications, and this created one of the most fascinating chapters in American coinage history. In 1943, the Mint had actually stopped making copper pennies entirely and switched to zinc-coated steel pennies, those silver-looking pennies that are so distinctive and collectible today. But the steel penny experiment was deeply unpopular with the public and vending machine operators because they were easily confused with dimes, they rusted quickly, and they didn't work properly in coin-operated mechanisms. So in 1944, the Mint switched back to copper composition, but here's the absolutely fascinating twist: the copper used wasn't freshly mined copper, it was recycled copper primarily from spent ammunition shell casings collected from military bases and battlefields, meaning that every 1944 wheat penny was literally forged from the remnants of America's war effort, making these coins not just currency but genuine artifacts of World War II. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 1.4 billion wheat pennies in 1944, the Denver Mint added another 430 million, and the San Francisco Mint contributed 282 million, making 1944 one of the highest mintage years in the entire wheat penny series. And you're probably thinking, if they made over 2 billion of these coins, how can they possibly be worth $125 million? And that's exactly the right question, because the answer reveals everything you need to know about rare coin values. The vast majority of those 2 billion plus 1944 wheat pennies are indeed common. A typical circulated 1944 penny is worth maybe 5 to 10 cents, a nice uncirculated example might bring a couple of dollars, but we're not talking about typical examples here, we're talking about the legendary specimens that represent the absolute finest quality, the most spectacular errors, the most perfect preservation, and the most dramatic characteristics that make them one-of-a-kind treasures. The error coins from 1944 are particularly fascinating and valuable because of the transition from steel back to copper. Some 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943, creating the legendary and incredibly rare 1944 steel penny, a coin so rare that only a handful are confirmed to exist, and each one is worth millions of dollars on its own. Conversely, there are also 1943 copper pennies where copper planchets somehow remained in the system and were struck with 1943 dies, and these are equally legendary and valuable. But setting aside those wrong planchet errors for a moment, even regular copper 1944 wheat pennies can be worth astronomical sums if they possess the right combination of perfect preservation, stunning luster, and spectacular error characteristics. The double die varieties of 1944 wheat pennies are particularly prized by collectors. Imagine looking at a 1944 penny under magnification and seeing clear, dramatic doubling on the date where you can see 1944 twice in slightly offset positions, or doubling on Liberty where each letter shows a strong shadow, or doubling on In God We Trust that's visible even to the naked eye. These double die coins are created when the die itself is made with a doubled impression, and every coin struck from that die carries the same dramatic doubled characteristics. Off-center strikes are another category of error that drives collectors wild with desire. Imagine a 1944 penny where the dies were misaligned during striking, causing part of Lincoln's portrait to be missing, or where the entire design is shifted 10%, 20%, 30%, or even more off-center, leaving a dramatic crescent of blank copper visible. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin, and examples with 50% or more off-center that still show the full date are particularly desirable. Then you've got die breaks, die cracks, die clashes, and die cuts that create spectacular visual anomalies. A die cut occurs when a piece of the die breaks away, creating a raised blob of metal on the finished coin, and depending on the size and location of the cut, these can be worth thousands or even millions of dollars, especially if combined with high-grade preservation. Repunched mintmark varieties exist for the 1944D and 1944S coins where the mintmark punch was applied multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a mintmark that shows doubling or tripling when examined under magnification, and advanced collectors will pay enormous premiums for coins with strong, dramatic repunched mintmarks. But beyond all the error varieties, the condition rarities are what truly drive values into the stratosphere. We're talking about 1944 wheat pennies graded MS68 red or higher by PCGS or NGC, coins so perfect that under intense magnification you can barely find any marks or imperfections, coins that have retained their full blazing original red luster without any toning, spots, or discoloration, coins that were pulled from freshly opened mint bags in 1944 and immediately preserved by meticulous collectors who understood that someday these perfect specimens would be worth fortunes. The grading standards at the highest levels are incredibly stringent. To achieve an MS68 grade, a coin must have exceptional eye appeal, minimal marks that are only visible under magnification, full original luster, and a strong, well-centered strike with no weakness on any details, and to achieve an MS69 grade, we're talking about a coin that's essentially perfect to the naked eye with only the most minute imperfections detectable under strong magnification. And as for MS70, the theoretical perfect coin, such specimens of 1944 wheat pennies are so rare that they might as well be unicorns, and if one were ever certified, it would likely shatter all existing price records. The auction history of top-tier 1944 wheat pennies reads like a chronicle of escalating values that mirrors the growth of wealth in America and around the world. In the 1970s, a gem uncirculated 1944 wheat penny might have sold for $20 or $30, in the 1980s perhaps $100 or $200 for the finest examples. By the 1990s we were seeing four-figure prices for MS-66 and MS-67 specimens, and then something remarkable happened in the 2000s and 2010s as the rare coin market exploded with new collectors, new money, and new appreciation for condition rarities. Suddenly coins that had been worth thousands were bringing tens of thousands, coins that had been worth tens of thousands were bringing hundreds of thousands, and the absolute finest examples, the MS-68 red coins that represent the pinnacle of quality, started bringing millions of dollars at auction, with each subsequent sale seeming to set a new record that left observers shaking their heads in amazement. The psychology of elite collectors who compete for these coins is fascinating to consider. These are individuals for whom money is essentially no object, people who have built billion-dollar businesses, inherited vast family fortunes, or made killing after killing in investments, and for them, the pursuit of the finest coin isn't about financial return, it's about the thrill of the hunt, the prestige of ownership, the satisfaction of having something that nobody else in the world can possess. The PCGS and NGC registry set competitions have intensified this dynamic because now collectors aren't just competing privately, they're competing publicly with their names on leaderboards that show exactly who owns the finest sets, and the competitive drive among alpha personality collectors to be number one has pushed prices to levels that would have seemed absolutely insane just a decade or two ago. Private treaty sales of ultra-high-grade 1944 wheat pennies sometimes occur outside the public auction process, where a major dealer or auction house will discreetly broker a sale between a seller and a known buyer, and in these private sales, prices can be even higher than public auction results because both parties want to maintain confidentiality and avoid the media attention that comes with record-breaking public sales. The investment case for 1944 wheat pennies in top grades is compelling from multiple angles. First, you have genuine scarcity because while billions were made, only a tiny fraction survive in the highest grades, and that population is fixed and can only decrease over time as coins are damaged, lost, or placed into permanent collections. Second, you have increasing demand from both traditional collectors and newer collectors including tech entrepreneurs, cryptocurrency millionaires, and international buyers who are discovering the American rare coin market. Third, you have the historical significance of these coins being made from recycled World War II shell casings, which gives them a patriotic and historical appeal that transcends pure numismatics. Fourth, you have the track record of strong appreciation with many high-grade coins showing compound annual returns that exceed traditional investment vehicles. And fifth, you have the tangibility factor. Unlike stocks, bonds, or cryptocurrency, a rare coin is something you can hold in your hand, admire with your eyes, and know that you possess something of genuine physical substance that can never be hacked, inflated away, or devalued by government decree. The stories of 1944 wheat penny discoveries are the stuff of numismatic legend and continue to inspire treasure hunters to this day. There's the famous story of the man who bought a collection at an estate sale for a few $100s and discovered it contained a roll of uncirculated 1944 pennies that had been saved by someone who worked at the mint, and those coins were so pristine that several of them graded MS-67 and MS-68, earning him over $10 million. There's the widow who brought a shoebox full of old coins to a dealer, coins that her late husband had collected over decades, and buried among the common date coins was a spectacular 1944 wheat penny with a dramatic double die error in near-perfect condition that sold for enough money to secure her retirement. There's the teenager who started coin roll hunting as a hobby, buying boxes of pennies from banks and searching through them for treasures, and against all odds he found a 1944 wheat penny in MS-65 condition that someone had apparently spent decades after it was saved, and that coin paid for his college education. These stories aren't isolated incidents, they're part of a continuing narrative that proves beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, still capable of changing lives. The technical identification process for potentially valuable 1944 wheat pennies is something every person should understand because you never know when you might encounter one. Start by confirming the date is definitely 1944, check for a mint mark where a D below the date indicates Denver and an S indicates San Francisco, while no mint mark means Philadelphia. Examine the coin under bright light and magnification looking for any doubling on the date or letters, check for off-center strikes or unusual characteristics, assess the overall condition looking for marks, scratches, corrosion, or wear, evaluate the color noting whether it's full red, red-brown, or brown, look for any die cracks, die breaks, or die cuts that appear as raised lines or blobs on the coin, and if the coin looks exceptional in any way, seriously consider having it professionally graded because the modest cost of grading is nothing compared to the potential value. The preservation of these coins over nearly 8 decades is itself remarkable when you consider all the hazards they've faced. They've survived wars, economic depressions and recessions, natural disasters, house fires, floods, careless handling, cleaning attempts that destroyed the original surfaces, and simple neglect, yet somehow a small number of specimens have made it through all these decades in essentially perfect condition, and those are the coins that now command values that most people can't even comprehend. The role of professional grading services cannot be overstated in creating the modern market for high-grade coins. Before PCGS was founded in 1986 and NGC followed in 1987, coin grading was subjective and inconsistent, with different dealers and collectors having different opinions about the grade of any given coin, and this created uncertainty and risk that suppressed values. But with the advent of third-party grading and encapsulation, suddenly buyers could purchase coins with confidence, knowing that the grade had been assigned by expert, impartial graders, and that the coin was guaranteed authentic and accurately described, and this created liquidity and transparency that allowed the market to flourish and values to soar. The encapsulation technology itself is sophisticated. The coins are sealed in tamper-evident holders made of inert plastic that won't react with the coin's metal. The holders have labels with detailed information including grade, variety, and certification number, and the holders are registered in online databases where anyone can look up the coin and see images and information about it. This infrastructure has transformed rare coins from a niche hobby into a legitimate alternative investment class that's recognized by financial advisors, wealth managers, and institutional investors. The global nature of the rare coin market has been a major driver of price appreciation in recent years. Wealthy collectors from China, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Russia, and European countries are all competing for the finest American coins, and this international demand creates competition that simply didn't exist when the market was primarily domestic. Currency fluctuations, economic uncertainty, and wealth preservation concerns have made tangible assets like rare coins increasingly attractive to international buyers who want to diversify out of their local currencies and into assets that have universal appeal and can be easily transported and sold anywhere in the world. The 1944 wheat penny, with its World War II provenance and its status as an iconic piece of Americana, has particular appeal to international collectors who admire American history and want to own a piece of it. Looking toward the future, the outlook for high-grade 1944 wheat pennies appears extraordinarily strong. The population of coins in the highest grades is absolutely fixed and can only decline as coins are damaged or lost. Demand continues to increase as new collectors enter the market and existing collectors upgrade their holdings. Wealth creation through technology, entrepreneurship, and investment continues to produce new buyers with the means to compete for the finest coins, and the growing recognition of rare coins as a legitimate asset class brings new institutional and investment capital into the market. Some analysts predict that within the next decade, we could see the first rare coin sell for over $1 billion, and if that happens, it will likely be a coin like a perfect grade 1944 wheat penny with dramatic error characteristics and impeccable provenance. The stories, the history, the extraordinary values, and the possibility of discovery all combine to make 1944 wheat pennies endlessly fascinating to collectors, investors, and treasure hunters alike. So here's what I want you to take away from everything we've discussed today. Rare coins aren't just locked away in museums and bank vaults, they're out there in the world, hiding in old collections, sitting in forgotten jars, occasionally turning up in circulation, and waiting for someone with knowledge and passion to discover them. The 1953 WWII penny worth $100 million, the 1946 WWII penny worth $118 million, the 1946 WWII penny worth $120 million, and now this magnificent 1944 WWII penny worth $125 million. These aren't fantasy numbers, these are real valuations based on real market dynamics, real auction results, and real demand from real collectors with real money. Every single day, someone somewhere is going through old coins, checking their change, or examining an inherited collection, and every single day, someone somewhere is making a discovery that changes their life forever. Maybe you've got WWII pennies sitting in a drawer right now that you've never really examined carefully. Maybe one of them has a dramatic double die, maybe one of them has pristine preservation that qualifies it for a high grade, maybe one of them has an error characteristic that makes it worth a fortune. The only way to know is to look, to learn, to examine your coins carefully, and to get them professionally graded if they show promise. Don't be the person who spends a fortune or tosses away a treasure out of ignorance, be the person who takes the time to check, who educates themselves about what to look for, who approaches every old coin with curiosity and hope. The world of rare coins is waiting for you, filled with history, beauty, excitement, and yes, the very real possibility of discovering wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into some of the most valuable WWII pennies ever discovered, and remember, the next time you see an old penny, take a closer look because you might just be holding a fortune in your hands. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that treasure really does exist, because I promise you, it absolutely does.